Hi, it's Storm Schoonover, just getting ready for our final presentation. Here we go. All right, today we're going to be looking at gender and resiliency and identifying strategies to increase resiliency in military-connected adolescents. I'm your presenter, Storm Schoonover. Starting off today, we're looking at these two memes, highlighting why resiliency is so important for the military family. The first one is, instead of traveling, we've decided to try to live everywhere for a few years at a time, and military prep. Unless you lived it, you just won't get it. Introducing our topic is, as of 2012, Arnold Gardner and Nunnery reported that there were more than 1.2 million children with one or both parents employed as active duty service members of the United States military. This population of students moves on average of 6 to 9 times between kindergarten and graduation. While being a military dependent is linked to increased risk of emotional and behavior problems and increased risk high-risk behaviors, most military children have a high rate of emotional resiliency. Increased resiliency helps military children to adapt during times of high stress, particularly parental deployments and frequent transition. Beginning our literature review, we're looking at deployment as the first military stressor. Military affiliation for children increases the probability of mental health problems, especially depression and anxiety. The dramatic increase in mental health visits implies that military deployments, which began in 2001, have had a significant impact on military youth. The length of deployment also has direct consequences for youth. Children whose parents were deployed more than 11 months had the highest levels of mental health diagnoses. Children are at high risk of neglect from their caregiving parent during deployment, and the combination of lengthy deployments and increased likelihood of parental neglect directly impacts the mental health of military youth. Military children with a deployed parent are twice as likely to use illegal or prescription drugs as non-military children. This population is also more likely to consume alcohol and should be considered at risk for alcohol and drug abuse, especially during times of high familial stress. Additional increases in sexual activity and gang affiliation have been noted. The degree of stress associated with deployment and reintegration is dependent on the relationship strengths and weaknesses in the family and the overall mental health of each family member. This stress can also lead to decreased academic achievement. Our second military stressor that we're going to look at is frequent transitions. Military children on average attend 5 different school districts before graduation. Johnson and Lee determined that frequent school changes actually enhance efficiency or resiliency. Additionally, communities with a strong military culture ease the transition for many military youth. Military children are more likely to experience educational gaps, however, because of the frequent transitions. And it's important to note that resiliency is not static and that it can decrease as stress levels increase. Research has found that military children, though faced with additional stressors, are more resilient than their non-military peers. This is attributed to many factors. Often military-connected youth have previous exposure to different cultures and environments and are more likely to adapt to their new environment following a military transfer. Children are more resilient during times of stress and transition when supported by a military community and others in the military life. Community support and positive military perceptions also increase resiliency for military family members. Looking at academic resiliency, military lifestyle impacts student academic resiliency. Bob Reed and Horvath found that children whose parents have been deployed 19 months or longer since 2001 have lower achievement test scores compared to those who have experienced less or no parental deployment. Educational support can increase resiliency, however. The Compact on Educational Opportunities for Military Children encourages more streamlined processes for credits, placements, record transfers, etc. for military children to enhance academic success and on-time graduation rates. Schools that focus on sharing best practices to support military children can also encourage resilient military youth. Although research on gender and resiliency is minimal, research suggests the connection of the parent and outdoor adventure programs and can perhaps provide insight regarding military children. Overholt and Ewart found that women experienced this differently than men, and that men who shared emotions and communicated effectively were shown to have higher resiliency rates. Milburn and Lightfoot identify additional gender differences at school. School staff reported that boys exhibit anger and aggression, while girls had somatic complaints and seemed depressed during parental deployment. This leads us to our research gap. With regard to these findings, research on gender-specific resiliency in military-connected adolescents is needed to understand what interventions can increase emotional and academic well-being. Research has previously looked at resiliency in military families. Gender-based analysis has not been completed. Researchers have not identified gender-specific methods for increasing resiliency among military-connected adolescents. Milburn and Lightfoot further identify a need for adolescent-specific research. While Williams and Bryan identified certain home factors and school factors that improved academic resiliency among urban African-American male adolescents, there is a gap in information concerning resiliency factors for military adolescents. Our 4 guiding research questions for this research proposal are: how does student relationship to caregiver affect resiliency for military adolescent males and females? How do contextual factors affect resiliency for adolescent military connected males and females? How does adolescent age and gender influence levels of resiliency for military connected youth? And how does gender and age influence strategies to improve resiliency for military connected youth when exposed to military-related stressors? The purpose of this mixed method study is to identify how gender and age affect military connected youth resiliency, identify skills and techniques used by highly resilient military youth, and examine how skills and techniques that are used by highly resilient military youth vary based on gender and age. The results of the study will allow researchers to understand how gender and age in military connected youth influence resiliency and skill development. Our participants were limited to students enrolled in domestic dependent elementary and secondary schools in grades 6 through 12. Fort Campbell Kentucky School District was identified as a good sample site, with a total of 1,780 students enrolled in grades 6 through 12. This mixed method embedded study will have 2 phases. Phase 1 will be a resiliency survey, and phase 2 will be a focus group interview. For phase 1, the students will be identified through stratified sampling. To determine the sample, students will be divided into gender groups by age, or by gender groups by grade level. 32 male students and 32 female students will be surveyed for each grade level, or 20%. These students will be randomly chosen through random selection after being separated by gender and grade level. Total 224 female students and 224 male students will be administered the survey, for a total of 28% of the population. This will get a proportional random sample of military adolescent female and male students. Stratified random sampling data collection will occur in order to get a precise, clear sample to illustrate the levels of resiliency for military connected adolescent males compared to military adolescent females by age. This information will be used to develop focus groups for phase 2 of the survey. The second phase of the study will begin after the students have been given the initial survey on resiliency to target the focus participants. Samples will be determined using purposive sampling. Based on survey results, highly resilient male and female students will be identifiable. Every student in this identified group will be invited to attend focus group interviews. 4 focus groups will be created and divided by gender and grade level. Military-specific questions will be used, as well as the catalog questions used with the phase 1 survey administration packet. For our instrumentation, we are using, for phase 1, we're using the Child and Youth Resilience Measure with a CUIRM-28, developed by the Resilience Research Center. It uses a 5-point Likert scale survey with 28 questions that's divided into 3 subgroups: individual traits, relationship to caregiver, and contextual factors. The CUIRM-28 was assessed using Cronbach alpha, shared sample t-test, and interclass correlation coefficient to test for validity. It will, and it will take approximately 20 minutes to complete. For phase 2, participants will be selected using the high mean scores in all 3 subgroups. They will ask each focus group the same questions to transcribe for later analysis. It will occur in a neutral school environment. And the Resiliency Research Center Catalyst questions and the military stressor-specific questions that are research developed will be used. This is what the CUIRM-28 looks like. Again, 28 questions with a 5-point Likert scale. The phase 2 interview questions that are military specific are: how does moving with the military affect you personally and academically? What strategies do you use to make moving easier? What advice would you give a peer new to the military lifestyle? You had a parent deploy. How does your parent's deployment affect you personally? How does your life change when your parent deploys? What things do you do while your parent is deployed that help you with these changes? And what does it mean to you to be a military dependent? For our data analysis, data will be analyzed for phase 1 using standard deviation of the data collected from the QIRM 28 research tool for each subgroup of the test. A NOVA test for variance will be used. The independent variables we will be looking at are individual traits related to the caregiver and contextual factors as gathered from the research tool. The dependent variables will be age and gender. For individuals who have a high resilience score in each section of the QIRM 28 will be invited to participate in the second phase of the study. For phase 2, interview questions will be recorded and transcribed. The researcher will use qualitative content analysis to analyze the transcribed interviews. The researcher will use a coding frame to condense the group the content of the interviews. This framework will be developed after analysis of phase 1 data. The researcher will read the transcript, organizing the information into categories. From these categories, patterns and themes will be identified and described in order to identify gender-specific factors and skills used by military-connected adolescents to support high resiliency. The researcher will specifically analyze the data looking for coping strategies, coping methods, strengths, and involvement in extracurricular activities specific to gender and adolescent age. The researcher will also use number checking to validate results and limit researcher bias. Focus group participants will be able to evaluate the research. The researcher produced transcripts prior to analysis. The participants will be asked to test the accuracy of the recording to ensure the researcher does not inadvertently bias the data. Phase 1 data will help us answer the first 3 research questions. How does student relationship to caregiver affect resiliency for the military and adolescent males and females? How do contextual factors affect resiliency for adolescent military connected males and females? And how does adolescent age and gender influence level of resiliency for military connected youth? Phase 2 is going to focus on answering the question, how does gender and age influence strategies to improve resiliency for military connected youth when exposed to military-related stressors? Which leads us to our references. I've really enjoyed this course and I've learned a lot. Thank you very much.